Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. We've been I forgot to turn my sound down. That would be good. So I can get the comments up here. There we go. You know, we're going through this whole 28 days of forgiveness thing, which is bringing up a lot of stuff.
Yep.
In a good way, but it is
always.
It is a lot. In fact, it was funny. I was speaking to one of our soul tribe last week who I hadn't spoken to in a while, and I was telling them about the program because I hadn't even seen it. And they just started laughing, going, "Oh, so y'all think it's all gonna, like that was some light material in 28 days."
Right.
It's like, yeah, we keep on saying, everyone, if you need to take more than a day, a thing.
Hey, Karen.
Hey, Karen. But so we've just had to stay very aware, both of us, right? On how much muck has come up, which is great.
Right.
Yeah,
Karen's not sure it's good.
It is, because it's all going to just clear out like a big tsunami, but it's going to go the other way. Like, okay, it's all gone. And it's good. It's really productive. But the thing that, aside from that, we're just very sensitive and aware, hyper aware of everything right now, right? Because of all this.
Good morning, Nicole.
Morning, Nicole. And being hyper aware of one thing that we have noticed, and we started talking about last week, when we felt like this was going to be a great topic, is it seems that when people are getting triggered by other people right now, it's like their deepest triggers.
Right. It goes right to your core.
Yeah. I mean, ourselves and others. And it's interesting. Good morning, Yasmin. And it's interesting because and I think it's all because all this crumbs, I guess, are clearing out. And one of the things that we started talking about is, something we're reflecting on in a situation going on with a group of us that we, somebody that we know right now and stuff. And it was like, one of the things that really stand out, and this isn't with ego, this is just with observation, which is the more authentic that we get to be, the more we can trigger people to really extremes, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, this is something I'm used to, right? I've been doing this with the Trinity thing or whatever, and doing it with my work for a decade now. But it's like it's exacerbated. It is so hypersensitive right now, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I used to refer to, something like it's on steroids,
Yeah.
And it really didn't mean that much to me until I put my dog on steroids. And it's like, yes, it is exactly like on steroids. Everything's exaggerated.
Yeah. And Karen said, so someone I thought was a family would be better, maybe. Well, the thing is not to judge something as bad. That's the whole thing, right? So the thing is that saying something is bad or good is a judgment, right? But the thing is that it's productive. That's the important part. And it's not to ignore it and just think it's going to go away. It's to let yourself flow and be present with it and say, okay, what is there for me to look at in every situation?
Right.
It's
such a powerful tool to be able to look at the situation and not get sucked into it, but to actually take a step back, even a half step back, and say, okay, there's obviously something here for me.
Right. Because no situation is one-sided.
Exactly. As much as you'd love to believe that's not the case.
Right. And so,
or you wouldn't notice it.
Right. And it's funny
for you.
It wouldn't be anything but a blip in your reality, right? So
exactly.
It's funny because I have noticed over the years that here's the thing is I commit to myself. I have to, like I recommit, I commit to myself all the time that I know that my reality is my mirror, right? So if there is a disagreement with somebody, if somebody is triggered by me, if there is some kind of like thing where we're just on different planes, I don't judge the other person. I step back and go, okay,
Right.
what is there for me? Now, of course, do we have like human emotions? We do, right?
Right.
And so, the key is authenticity. Nicole says authenticity makes people self-conscious. I've observed. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So when you get to this place of authenticity, and it's not, so here's the thing to be aware of that many sort of skip over is authenticity is being yourself in your truth, what it is right now, right? From a
Right.
place of love, not from a place of ego and judgment, but from a place of
Exactly.
love, right? So when
Right.
somebody's, oh, I'm like, like it's
Like,
you
oh,
can,
look at me, I'm authentic.
and you're not.
Right.
There's the ego right there.
Yep.
But see, that's the thing, is that there's this is like very thin line for us to walk. But when we commit ourselves to being in a place of love and knowing that the bigger picture is all perfect and the way it comes together in the symphony, the thing is, our commitment is when we do when we do it from a place of love and unity versus ego and exclusion, to say, oh, well, I'm authentic and you're not.
It's more like I'm authentic and I love you.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that changes the whole tone.
And the thing is, when you get to a place of committing to that authenticity, then you don't make excuses. You don't rationalize something. You don't like make up reasons to do or not do something to make somebody else feel better. The authenticity is, it is this or it's not this. This is where I am. This is what my guidance is. This is what I stand in.
Right.
And there's no excuses. There's no apologies when it comes to that. When you do that, and what I've noticed is, and it's like this: if somebody has a grievance with something that you're doing or not doing or whatever, my commitment, and this is what I always do, but I might not announce it, is I always look in the mirror and say, okay, so what is there for me to see from that friction that I'm creating in their mirror, right?
Right.
So is there something for me to adjust? Is there something for me to see? And it's not to give myself up for somebody else. It's to make myself even more authentic, right? For myself.
Right.
And be more clear, more in my divine power. That's a challenge. That's something we're not in the habit of doing, right? Because usually we say, well, I'm awesome and you're not, or I'm awesome and whatever.
Right.
It just is a matter of being yourself, honoring each other's journeys, and not forcing myself and my authenticity on somebody, but just being what I am. Right. And when you're just being, it goes back to the
doing authenticity. Yes. It's being authenticity.
Right. And when you're being that, it's like, it's so funny because it's like, okay, and we're not used to that, right? Because we're used to, no, I don't want to do that. And then there's 5 reasons why I don't want to do that, right?
It's a different vibration too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wholly different vibration to hold yourself, which that's what bumps up to the other person's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the friction either occurs or doesn't occur.
Yeah. But like, here's some things in authenticity that we've talked about, but this is like, I think I'm getting that we should just sort of say them, because people, like, we're just not in the habit of seeing that within ourselves, right? When you say, no, I can't get to that because I've got to do this, and this. Well, the authenticity in that is, yeah, no, I'm choosing. I have other priorities that I'm choosing. That's really the truth.
Right.
It's not that you can't get to it. It's that you're choosing to not get to it. It's not that you can't go. It's that you're choosing not to go, or choosing not to not participate, or choosing. And you can do that from a place of love and ownership, and say, it's just not a priority for me, or I just have other priorities that are, more prominent right now. That's okay. But like, the thing is, we're so used to going, oh, well, I don't want to do this because of this and because of this and because I'm afraid of this. And that's all ego, right? That's all like trying to assuage somebody else and going, oh, well, I don't want to go, or I don't want to do this because blah, 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 versus, yeah, it's just not resonating with me about. So these are little things in authenticity, right? To just own it. So that's the thing, is sometimes I find that I really trigger people by just saying no.
Exactly. Without making excuses.
Without making excuses. Right.
Nicole says, knowing what matters to you and what doesn't matter. That's powerful clarity. And that's exactly what we're just talking about right here is no, that's,
or yes,
or yes, equally as powerful.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's like this. It's like what we've been talking about. It's funny, I don't see the gnat in this room until we get on video every time. Then it's just around. It's a little fairy, obviously, that wants to get its 5 cents in. You know, it's like, you know, here's the thing. We go by guidance. That's what our commitment is, right? Going by our inner guidance. That's what we do. So, you know, if my guidance says no, then I don't. And if my guidance says yes, then I do. And
right.
And it doesn't matter what somebody tells me. It doesn't matter what the news tells me. And that has to go with, you know, what's been going on in the world for the past year and everything else. And it's like, if I'm guided to go someplace, I go. If I'm guided not to, I don't, you know, and here's the authenticity. There are no excuses are inauthentic. Excuses come from the ego.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because anything from guidance would be either like a yes or a no.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's funny that when I don't give excuses, right? And here's also the thing is, when I am seeing somebody triggered by me, right, in my authenticity, I might not make a big deal about it in the moment, but I always go back, and that's like my first thing is, okay, so what's that about? Like that, right? How many times you and I had these conversations?
Right.
What's that about?
Exactly. And it's not like what's their problem. It's like, what's my problem?
Yeah. Right. But then because
what is there for me?
Right. And so what happens is I might not have that conversation, right? Or I will say, here's the thing is, oh yeah, well, I'm looking at this for me. This is what it's like depending on the individual, right? And where they are in their consciousness, like, oh, well, yeah, let me look at that for me. But that doesn't mean that lets you off the hook.
Right? Exactly.
And that triggers people even more when I say, yeah, I'm looking at what it is for me, but it's important for you to look at what's triggering you, like why it's triggering you. And then they get more angry at me for saying that.
Right. Which is saying, you know, I'm looking to resolve this for myself.
Right.
You do the same.
Right.
And it's not I think there's something wrong with you, so you need to do this. It's for the mutual benefit.
Right. Yeah.
And the deeper the trigger it is, the more of a challenge this is, but the greater the payback.
Yep.
Which is, you know, it's striking more in the inner core. And once you get in the habit of this practice, like we're talking about, the easier it is to resolve things on the fly and say, okay, what is there for me? What is there for me? And you peel back so many layers, and relationships become so much more authentic. You talk about authentic self, authentic relationships. Right. And I mean, it's fabulous.
And easy. You know why? Because there's no layers of lies and excuses. And well, and I say that like not with judgment, but like we do that in relationships all the time.
Right.
That's our habit. Oh, well, you know, I'm going to do this, or pretend I like this, or pretend I don't like that, or, you know, so it's like there's two sides to everything. Right. And so, but right now, part of the point here is that it's like, the more authentic we're getting, the deeper we're triggering other people. And the reason for that is, when we stand in our power and authenticity, without excuses, right? Unapologetically, then it is a mirror to everybody who you interact with. Am I that authentic with myself? Right. And many aren't. Many still, you know, and I'm saying we're all still working on that, because there's so much identity that we're letting go of and all that kind of stuff. and our authentic and what we are authentically now might be different in an hour and 6
Exactly.
hours, you know. But yeah, we've noticed with what's going on at the collective, and I love that we're doing this 28 days forgiveness thing, because there has brought up a ton of stuff, but I feel like it's being productive and like letting it all complete and resolve and everything else
Absolutely.
so quickly, right? Because we can, right? We don't need the processing time. We're just retraining ourselves to do it that quickly, which is part of why we're doing it this way, right?
Right.
But the collective has so much that's still what's the word, roiling around.
Right. It really is.
And
really is. And we hold a piece of all of that.
Yes, of course.
Right.
Of course. And so it's like, okay, well, the more that we do that for ourselves and we get into the habit of resolving that and moving on, resolving it, moving on, completing it, moving on, completing it, moving on, coming into that cycle that we've been talking about of apology, forgiveness, acceptance, embracing, and nourishment and love and gratitude, right? The more we do that, for, as we talked about last week, the opposites, both sides, right? Somebody in our discussion board had, a great, great thing that said, she's like, well, wouldn't we just then do both sides, right?
Well, and I added another comment. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but not only both sides, but also both sides of what we deem where we're forgiving. Like, for instance, being the criminal versus being the victim of the crime.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So there's that duality as well.
Right.
Being on both sides of it, as well as the other.
The perpetrator and the perpetrated.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, always. And so the more inclusive we become with all that, and no exclusion of, oh, well, you don't have to apologize for being a good person, but then good person is subjective anyway, right? As to what that means.
Right.
So
good person is a judgment.
It is. So we get to this, but so that's the point. The point is, in authenticity, we start to present ourselves differently, right?
Right.
And so some judge us some can judge you culturally in authenticity as being non-compassionate, right?
Right.
Or whatever triggers them in the moment that you're not doing to come along on that inauthenticity, and again, there's no judgment on that, but it's such a habit for us. And that's what we bond with, right?
Right.
So often.
Right.
It's so much easier when we're authentic in a relationship, and whether it's friendship or romantic relationship or anything, because then there's no onus on either one's shoulders except for their own and where they are in their authenticity in that moment.
Right. And there's no victimhood. There's no resentment. It's all it all plays out perfectly. The whole purpose of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's what we're here for.
Right. And so it's just a practice, and there's so many little nuances. Like it's taken years for me to even get where I am, and there are still times where I'm looking at what I'm doing or not doing for somebody else.
Well, and the triggers are always changing, and the reason behind them is always evolving as well. Right. So it's not like it's not like every time something triggers you, it's the same thing. It could be if you haven't fully delved into it and really, I always like to refer to it as like picking a knot apart. You have to really pick at it to get to the core of it.
Yep.
And sometimes you can gloss over it, but it will be back bigger and better
in a clump of something else.
Right. And maybe, the face on it is different, but what it is the same.
Yes. Yeah. So, I just did this by accident. There we go. Yeah. So the key is to just always, and this goes back to our discussion all the time about self-responsibility, but in the situation that we're talking about, it's like, and that's the funny thing. And we always started talking about that in a group of us last week. It was like, okay, so over the years, There have been people who've gotten pissed at me and walked away because I stayed authentic, and then I wouldn't change my direction,
Right.
to accommodate.
Right.
And we were talking about that. And it's like, well, you know, so often, so think about what's built into our culture. Well, don't get somebody mad.
Right. Don't disappoint somebody.
Don't disappoint somebody. Oh, that's all this week, right? That's all
That's this week.
this week in the forgiveness thing. We've got abuse, betrayal, abandonment, helplessness, disappointment, social injustice, and overall victimhood.
Yep. No small day.
Yeah. Funny how it all lines, right?
Right.
So, but it's a challenge for us, and it's something for us to stay really on top of within ourselves. And all we need to do is be committed to it within ourselves, and the key is, not getting angry about it if somebody so that's what we want to do, right? We want to get defensive. Like if somebody gets angry at you for being authentic, well, then the ego kicks in and says, well, screw you, I'm being authentic.
Right.
Instead of, okay, so what's this showing me? Like, what's this about? And what's in it for me? Like, what's the with them, and yeah, it's interesting because these are things that I've just observed. And my guidance has always been to just stay in a place of love and centeredness and neutrality,
Right.
to allow. But that is the thing, is remember, we react to what others reflect to us.
Right. Right. It's the way I look at it is that it's kind of like learning a new exercise. It's clunky, it's kind of uncomfortable in the beginning, and you're flexing new muscles, but the more you do it, it's like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I know what this looks like. I know what it feels like. And that's this process. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more automatic it becomes, and the more you use it as a positive instead of a negative. It becomes comfortable instead of uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And where we find that the most challenging is with our spouses.
Right.
And with our children.
Right.
But
the reward is so amazing.
Oh, it so is. So
it's just such a, such a pleasant relationship, and easy.
The easy button.
Right.
The easy button here. Once you get through all that, because it is, it is a challenge to do. I've talked about this in multiple venues, but there was a period of time years ago, my husband and I went through a really rough patch, and it was about 18 months, and we had to rebuild our entire relationship. So, and the way we rebuilt it was that authenticity. It was
right.
When I say this, I mean this.
Right.
I'm not implying something. I'm not pretending. When I say this, I mean it.
Right. And it also, the way my relationship have evolved is I present something from, this is how this impacts me, and I'm not blaming you.
Right.
And that really makes it productive.
Yeah. Well, when this happens, I feel this way, and you're not putting it on their shoulders.
Exactly.
But you're also calling attention to it, because that's their part to look at. Right.
Right.
Right. So it's like, oh, well, let's mirror in that for me. Right.
Right. And it also lets their reaction, it also lets them look at within themselves versus just react to being blamed.
Yes.
Which is, the blame is the distraction from what's really there.
Yes. Yep. And it's also having that recognition of, it's a lot more self-awareness. It's a lot more awareness of what's going on inside of you, instead of just projection.
Right.
And letting them carry or letting them carry the burden of how you feel on their shoulders, and vice versa. Right.
Exactly.
Versus saying, when this happens, I feel this way. I need to look at that. Like, why? Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Right.
And, it's funny because as I did that, then it just naturally started. My husband's actually started doing that to him as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the greatest part is this: if I'm cranky, I don't project it onto him. If I'm cranky about something because I feel something going on or whatever, and well, now it's been years, so it's like he's used to that, right? So even like last night, there was a lot of stuff. I don't know what came up this weekend, but last night was blah. And I was just cranky, and we went to bed. And he's like, "What's going on?" Because it's my birthday week. He's like, "Why aren't you happy?" He's like, "Are you not happy?" And I'm like, "I'm not happy right now." And he's like, "Why not?" I said, "Just, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it." And he goes, "Okay." And that was it. There was no like, "Oh, come on. Is it me? Are you blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah." It's like,
have I done something?
yeah, no, it was just, no, I just, not this moment.
Right.
It's like, and I own it, and it's mine. And I'm like, and it's not for him to deal with, it's for me to deal with, and vice versa. And that's the other thing. We tend to, in relationships, if the other person is unhappy, we tend to try to put it on ourselves and say, "Oh, what did I do wrong? How do I make them more happy? Like, what do I need to do to make them happy?" And stuff like
Right. Right.
that.
Yeah. Make it all better because I'm insecure because you're not okay.
Right. Right. But when you stop taking on that responsibility and, I'm responsible for me, you're responsible for you. Oh my God, it's so much easier.
Right.
And it's like that, interesting. It's like that. We say that's like in a spousal or an intimate relationship, but it's like that in any relationship. And
No,
then,
absolutely.
and when you can get to that in your most intimate relationships, it's so much easier to even just hold any relationship, because then that attachment gets less and less.
Right.
Yeah, it is very freeing, Karen. Yes. So it's like, and we're talking about the authenticity and no excuses. And it's not saying, "I'm not going to do this because you pissed me off." That's like still projecting. These are the little things.
Right.
Yeah. And friendships too, Karen. Absolutely. But it's like, yeah, I'm not doing this, or I'm angry because you pissed me off. No, it's like saying, okay, well, when this happened, this is how it made me feel. So I need to go and look at that for what it's saying to me, why it's triggering me. What is it triggering me about,
Right.
It's that self-responsibility in every situation, and walking away saying, okay, well, why am I, and if it's toxic, the question is, why am I allowing myself to be in a toxic relationship?
Exactly. Right. Right.
Right. I need to step away, and I'm not going to put it on the person. I'm going to say, well, maybe I need to look at that within why I'm like so self-loathing that I need to be in that kind of relationship to bring it up.
Right. It is that self-responsibility says, I created this for myself to see this. So taking responsibility for that, I need to see this, look at it, resolve it, so that I can then have gratitude for the lesson, complete it, and move on.
Yes. Yeah, we have and so right now, well, going back to our original point, right now, because so much is brought up like right under the surface, the triggers are really easy, and they're really,
absolutely,
and they seem to be really big over what, from a observational standpoint, a few very minor situation or interaction or
right
experience. So, there's no, and again, the thing that's really common that's really important for us to look at, that I hear that we all do at some point, is, "Oh, wow, that person just doesn't doesn't realize this, and this, blah, blah, blah," without saying, "So what is that reflecting back to me?"
Right.
Because it's so easy to feel superior and say, "Oh, I'm more spiritual, I'm more conscious, and blah, blah, blah." But it's like, nope, if they have that going on, I have something going on because it's in my reality, right? Again, it's that reminder. And we can't say that enough, right? Because we laugh because every time somebody gets triggered or whatever in our purview, and we're like, you and I have been for years been like, "Oh my God, I'm so pissed because of this. So I've been looking at this," and that's how we just talk. It's like, "I've been looking at this and blah, blah, blah." And it's like, oh, and we have had some of our biggest epiphanies from that self-reflection.
Right.
But what, the funny part that we have is that typically we could not talk for a day or two and then like start texting about, "Oh my God, I'm so triggered by this," or blah, blah, blah. And it's like this, we're triggered by the same thing with different situations. Because
And
it's the
that's usually
same.
how we come up with our topics for
Exactly.
today.
Because it's collective when it's both of us. And then we talk
Right.
to other people and they're like, oh my gosh. And then people tell us, oh my gosh, every time I listen or, every time I listen to everything, it's always perfect. It's always what's going on for me.
Right.
It's always something for me to look at. So, it is, it is really all the world's a mirror, right? All of,
Right.
and but the thing that is just to be cognizant right now is that if we are denying ourselves something about ourselves, because it's convenient to the ego, it's something the ego doesn't want to let go of. It's something the ego's attached to, right? Like,
Mhm.
because I identify, like, because subconsciously or underneath the surface, there's well, I can't let go of this because it's convenient for me that I don't have to then grow from this, right?
Right. But I'm going to dress it up to look like something else because I don't want to own that.
Right. And that's a big one for us right now because we're letting go of a lot of identity, right? And so it's like, oh my gosh, if I've identified with, there's a person that I know, in my realm. I'm not even going to talk about the context of how I know them or whatever, but they are really addicted to their ailments and their injuries.
Right.
I mean, but everybody's got somebody in their reality that's like that, right?
Absolutely.
So it's interesting that this person they start conversations with all these other people about, oh, I have this going on, I have this going on, this going on. It becomes like they're the center. And what does it do? It gets them attention all the time.
Right.
And that's
Right.
how it serves them, right? No judgment, but that's how it serves them because we're used to saying, oh, I have to be compassionate, I have to care about where so like everybody,
Right. And I
like,
would be a bad person if I didn't think this was horrible.
right. And so in a context of a group of people, this individual will just go on and on and on, and they kept on trying to connect with me, and I just have no connection with them because I'm like, I don't identify with that.
Right.
I didn't say that. But I mean, that's just where I'm coming from. Is I don't identify with that. I don't identify with sickness. I don't identify with injury. I don't identify and it's not that I judge it. It's that it's just neutrality. Right.
Right.
And so the thing is that the person having, they had a period of time where they had a really challenging time. They just decided not to talk to me at all for a while. And now they are changing their script when we interact because we're in the same group of people. So it's, we're not going away. We're going to be in the same group of people.
Right.
But it's like, it's funny that I've noticed though, that the script has changed because I'm just like, well, and I'm not judging them. I'm just like, okay, it is what it is, but I have nothing to add to that, but maybe you want to, whatever. But that's the thing is our scripts are changing. And so the point about that is we have a lot of addictions to pain and injury and illness, right? To gain attention, right? To gain compassion when we don't have compassion. Yeah. And so, yeah, you're right. So Karen says you can't relate like you're speaking two different languages. Well, it is, it's true. And it's not that I am judging the person. It's just that
it's not part of your authentic self.
that's right. So, the thing is, these are the authentic things that we're not used to doing, right? To put on an act and say, oh, whatever. I've had my mother call me uncompassionate because I'm like, okay.
Right.
And I don't react. It's like, unless I'm guided to, because guidance says, oh, this situation's okay. They're okay, whatever, until I'm guided to help them with something, until I'm guided to do something, and it's like part of my crusade is really helping everybody, like while I'm empowering myself, helping everybody empower themselves.
Absolutely.
And if I continually, take it away from them, then I'm preventing that from happening.
Right. Right. It's like preventing your children from growing up and learning how to live in the real world.
Yes, which is one of the most challenging things we have as parents, right? So letting them well, it's like this, my kids are going to be 25 and 23 this year, right? And they both live at home, but they're starting to get their own lives and whatever and all this kind of stuff. And, my 25-year-old lives in the basement with her significant other and because there's a 2-bedroom apartment down there. And so they sort of have their own lives.
Right.
And they do things that I don't necessarily agree with, they do like, or don't do things or whatever. But that's their choice. That's their journey. And my guidance is that's their journey. And so therefore I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to intervene. I might be guided every once in a while to drop a little tidbit of a suggestion, but that's some of the most challenging things, especially when your kids are first adults, right? To say, well, you should do this, or you should do that, or you shouldn't do this, or blah, blah, blah,
Right.
So, what?
Karen's message, my parents feel the same way and I'm 43.
Nicole says, I've been leaning into the guidance. It's been so freeing, right? Because that's it. That's just the word is the guidance. It's like,
right.
It is what it is. And then the ego, and the ego goes, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. That's the whole, that's the internal struggle. Anyway, we go on. The thing is really to be very cognizant of where you are in your authenticity right now. Like we're all of us. Mm-hmm. Be cognizant of where we are in our authenticity.
Right.
And to own it, to own everything and every interaction as our own, right? And say, okay, what's there to show me? Like I said, in situations with people that I know who understand that context, right? That's when I'll say, so what, like, maybe you want to look at what it shows you, but sometimes that triggers them even worse because it makes them think that I'm not like looking at my stuff and I'm like, yeah, no.
Well, or being superior, like I know better than you do.
Yeah. When it's like, no, because I'm looking at my stuff. So I'm just saying, you look at your stuff.
Right.
I do me, you do you. I can't tell you how many times that's happened too. And it's like, no, I'm not saying, you and I talk, like I said, you and I talk about this. It's so natural. And it's like, oh my God, I'm looking at this, blah, blah, blah. What does it say to you? Does it say,
right. What am I missing?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's more putting that jigsaw puzzle together. Because you said without missing any pieces.
Yes. I've worked 2 puzzles since the holidays and each one's missing pieces. And I'm like, okay, what's that message?
Pretty obvious, right? There's some pieces.
Something's missing.
Something's missing.
Or I believe something's missing.
Yeah, right. Maybe it's supposed to be hole in that one hole in the puzzle.
Right. Can I say it's complete even though all the pieces aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah. So for us to do today, I think and the other thing is in recognizing that the more we are authentic, the more challenging it is for those around us to not be.
Right.
And so it will trigger them. And sometimes it causes them to leave your reality. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's
for now, even
for now. Right. Yep.
Right.
I mean, there are people I know who we've gotten out of each other's reality for several years, even longer, then come back.
Right.
And then we're just in a different place, which is good,
Absolutely.
But it's always, we tend to be inauthentic with people that we're close with because we're afraid of losing them in our reality, right? We're afraid of this. We want to hold on to them because somehow they fill a hole, like they fill what we believe is a hole in there. And so that's for us to look at. Right. What hole do I believe I have without this person? Right. And then the other part is to say, well, no, because we're always connected anyway, right? We're all one.
That's here or not.
Here or not. And to, look at, and then we don't want to not be authentic with who we are because then we're bending to be somebody else for someone else that we're not.
Right.
And that's where we've perpetuated that for the ages, eons. Ian's. So the thing is to respect that of each other, of ourselves and each other. And when you recognize that somebody's been really triggered, or that you're really triggered by somebody else, allow it to be yours, or allow it to be theirs.
Right.
Allow it to be both of yours, actually.
Right.
Without the, oh, I need this, I need that, we need to have this, we need to have that, because need is all ego.
Mm-hmm.
Need is lack. And say, okay, so what is there for me to see? What is there for me to be? What is there for me to do?
Right.
Goes back to that. So, and know that I have learned time and time again, and I know you've had the same kind of experiences. The more we commit to our own authenticity, the faster and easier things resolve anyway.
Absolutely.
And the more easy and flowing it becomes.
Yes.
Because you're not defending, you're not spending a whole bunch of energy on defending, rationalizing, excusing,
Mm-hmm.
Changing who you are to bend to be some, to make somebody else happy. Think of all these things we give away our power to.
Right.
So maybe that's the thing for today, is allowing ourselves to honor our own authenticity, to know how to stand in that from a expanded perspective, right?
Right. And it's the way I look at it is the same with self-love. You can't truly love somebody till you love yourself. You can't be authentic you can't honor someone else's authenticity until you honor yours.
Right. And it's funny that a little side note, people ask me all the time, what do I believe has been the thing that has allowed my husband and I to be together for so long, right? Because we've been together a long time. I don't know. I think it's 29 years this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, because when we both, it just happened that when we met, we were both in the place of, this is who I am. Take it or leave it, which is that authenticity of, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And yeah, we shifted and then shifted back to that. And then once we shifted back to that, that's when everything just got great. And it's like, I'm me and you're you, and we can honor that, and we can do stuff together. We don't have to do stuff together. And it's just it is free. And there's not the dependency. But yeah, so in finding and allowing our authenticity, what did you just say before? I just totally went off on a tangent.
About you find the authenticity in the other person.
Yeah. So for the session today, allowing, I allow myself to be authentic, which of course, as you said, it does tie back to self-love too, because the more we practice,
right.
self-love, the more we tend to be more authentic, because then we're good with being who we are.
Right. There's no need to be anything but yourself.
Right. So if we commit ourselves to be in that authenticity, we're also committing to our self-love nourishment, to the nourishment of ourselves, to whatever. So if I commit to my self-love, I commit to my authenticity. And in doing so, I hold the space to honor that of others, with love.
Mm-hmm.
And I see and can observe the mirror that I guess that we all put up for each other. I don't know. What do you want to say with this today? There's so many different directions we can go with it.
I know there are so many directions. I don't know. Maybe something as simple as I nourish my self-love through authenticity.
And I allow others to do the same.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. I like that last part. Yeah.
Yep. With love. Okay. That feels really good.
That does. That feels amazing.
All right. You ready?
I am. Let's do this.
Yep. That felt nice.
Yes, it did.
I'm feeling like a big fountain of love.
Yeah. In the beginning, it was like I find hot showers very nourishing, and it's like I'm in the shower and I'm nourishing myself, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm covered in all these clothes, and it's like stripping that away, that inauthenticity, to be able to actually nourish yourself. That was
So for the future, we're going to be doing the show nude.
right. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that would be a plus.
Oh, now don't judge. Don't judge. That's judging. Self-nourishment, self-love. Remember that.
That's right.
Anyway, so yeah, no, that felt good. It was almost like I saw there was a lot of like individual facets of the whole. Suddenly started just looking around at each other like, well, now what do we do? Like honestly, it was like confusion at first more than anything.
Right.
And it was like I see Nicole.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to bring everybody on camera then.
We did have that one time in a group. Remember, somebody just that was great.
Right.
Oh, I remember that. That was hysterical. Yeah, it was like everybody was confused because they're like, well, I don't know how to be. I don't know what to be. Like, what am I? Like, because when we stop putting our energy on what we're supposed to be, what we are supposed to look like, what we're supposed to think of us, blah, blah, and it's like only you being you.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, what is that?
Oh, yeah.
you know? And so there was confusion at first, and then it was sort of like feeling it out. And then it became like almost like different. Everything started to, it started to melt together, for lack of a better term. And then it became like like I said, like a fountain. Then like the energy just came up and out, and it was almost like it was liquidy, but it was almost like firework. Like it felt really good.
Yeah.
Like gooey, yummy, and
yummy. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely felt yummy.
Yeah.
At the end.
that was really nice. So yeah, stick with that. So for those who are doing the 28 days with us, yeah, you could probably go back to this every day you feel yucky, because that really good.
Right.
Sort of helps like hand in hand. If not, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Just come back to this and do it again, because it just feels good, you know. And
Right.
it's something for us in our day-to-day to remember within ourselves. Like, is this my authenticity? Is this truly authentically me?
Right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. We will see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.